more that it's integrated, I think
Totally.
the easier it is for everybody my age and younger to definitely embrace. And
Totally.
it's just, I can definitely see how that's very helpful. But what kind of key friction points have you faced or that you see that industry professionals face in the process of adopting these ideas?
For sure. And I mean, you actually noted on something that's really interesting and kind of ties into the question as well, is to point out that, it's really starting to be just across all industries, right? This change of guard, I'll call it, right? I think that's a saying that people understand where, decision makers, just the general workforce, everybody that's working has some relatability to tech from, childhood or close to it, right? So that's all to say that it's inevitable that adoption is going to occur because it must in order to, increase productivity, to create collaboration, to track, to own data, all these important elements that exist in basically every industry. Um, so to kind of wrap back into the question that you asked as it relates to friction, I've in my own experience, coming from the construction space, and then now in my experience on the tech side, similar frictions that I see exist, and I bring it back to these legacy products. This is my like saying, right? These legacy products created an amazing kind of awareness of technology. However, at the same time, they've also ingrained this like preconceived notion that it's a friction filled process, right? That you need certifications to onboard project management tools, that you need this lengthy training to implement it across your company, that each feature set is this complicated process to add onto or to refine. So pulling away from that, right? I'll break it down into a few things. One is um, understanding, right? So onboarding and training for a product. So I'll go back to a smartphone, right? If you think you know how to use a smartphone, if you think that your colleagues or your employees know how to use a smartphone, then you should know how to use your, baseline project management tool, right? That's one. Two is in terms of implementation across your organization. First and foremost, if that actually is some heavy lift, then start small, right? Start on one project, start on one division, start on one area, however it is that you want to kind of conceive of it. So that's that second layer of friction is start small, start in an easy manner to then roll out over time. And then the third thing happens to be price point in terms of frictions, um, where legacy products are typically pricing based on percentages of your project cost. And that's something that I know coming from the industry, the builders I worked for really, really hated. And, we've moved away from that as well as a solution. So to kind of wrap that up, I said three things. One is call it onboarding or training. That's one friction. The second friction is adoption across the company. And then third is price point.
Okay. And the more that you can smooth those, obviously the
Mhm.
less friction, the more adoption, the more embracing, the more positive feedback. Um, and not necessarily to you, but the positive internal feedback
Mhm.
that it's this is not a waste of my time
Totally.
and that it's actually helpful and it's not I'm not redundantly doing things.
Yeah, totally.
And you may have touched on this, and I think you probably caught it, but I have a note here about like the productivity gap in the
Mhm.
industry and that how do we overcome that hesitation to adopt new things? And some of it's obviously going to be fear of the unknown, or
Mhm.
is it really going to be, is it going to help me now? Because I'm losing money on this job now. I can't afford to continue to lose money on this and the next three jobs before it becomes productivity or productive and the people that are using it are educated and able to use it and leverage it and so on. Do you have any
Mhm.
thoughts on that?
Absolutely. So I think that, us in the industry of construction and development get a bad rep. And I think the reason for that, and also why this issue dates back to 1968, is that sometimes people don't recognize the level of complications or the level of complexity that exists in building anything. Right? I mean, you're talking about dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of different companies that need to collaborate from office to field and vice versa, logistics, weather, all these crazy things that occur. And you really need to get everybody to work together. So if you ever, are in your own within your own company, within your own department, if you have difficulties in working with other teams, now imagine doing so, across multitudes of teams, across different, areas, even, right, office to site, etc. So I just wanted to lay that out, give us in the industry some credit there for mass collaboration. Now, beyond that, in terms of kind of getting us up to speed and addressing these kind of use case pain points, these frictions, something that we've done to address that question, to address that difficulty, first and foremost, is creating a platform that allows everybody to centralize their information, centralize their workflows. And what that means is so that everybody could understand when they're responsible for what and how that impacts others and vice versa. So that's first and foremost, which is kind of a basis. Doesn't matter what industry you're in. I mean, that's very relevant, especially if you're working cross-channel. That's one. Two is we've implemented robust yet simple measures to kind of create downstream simplicity. So what I mean by that is I'll take the middle process as an example, right? So we have access and permission controls for all of our features. And beyond that is you can limit the product visibility to specific, I'll call it workflow or responsibilities for specific end users. So for example, you can onboard whoever you want responsible for a submittal and allow them access and visibility literally and only to what they've been assigned to or signed for, right? So that's to say, and that functionality works across all of our products, whether it's all of our features, sorry, whether it's a project budget, a payment app, a submittal, a punch list, whatever it may be. So that's to say, if the end user is on a job site and not sitting by a computer, who then could kind of navigate a full end-to-end product, well, that person, that end user on the job site, is literally only seeing the submittal and punch list that is relevant to them. So that's a way that we're looking to address the existing friction.
I think it's great, and I think it sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
You've definitely taken on a bit of a leadership role across the industry, trying to support the industry.
Mhm.
But from a leadership perspective, either your own experience or what you've worked with, what drives those initiatives? And I mean, obviously, you are very versed on your product and what you are selling. But if somebody else is considering other options or other ideas of how to make improvements and leverage technology, what advice would you have for them from a leadership role?
Definitely. I think that this is actually, again, like similar to kind of any industry. And I would suggest that you take your leader and your champion, as we call it, and that's to say that whatever relevant leadership in the company needs to be on board and understanding of how a technology can help them. So as an example, I'll use, our own product is, it could be a budget report, it could be a forecasting report, it could be a consolidated payment application for them to review, right? So that's on their end for their understanding of what works. Now on the operator end, I mean, we could pull from the examples that I just gave in terms of simplicity. We could understand that it consolidates their efforts, right? So that's support on what they're doing.